Hi, everybody. My name's Nancy. I'm an alcoholic. Nancy. And I am a member of the Coral Gables group of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's nice to be here doing step 12. I don't know. It's been fun to come up here. I don't know whether I seem like it or not, but I'm actually a pretty shy person. I'm not an outgoing person naturally. And I'm one of those people that was an isolator and all that stuff, and that's kind of how I am. And I've gotten better in sobriety, and also I've sort of accepted myself a lot more. But one of the things that's helped me is being able to do things like I'm doing tonight. Is I get asked to do a step series somewhere, and I go there and do it, and I meet all kinds of people that I would never know otherwise. I would never have met them. I would never get to know them. And over the course of the 3 months that it takes to do a step series, I get to meet 3 or 4 people and know them pretty well and make new friends. And I've been doing this for 29 years. So I've got to meet an awful lot of people, and it's done for me what I couldn't possibly have done for myself. I could not have done it for myself. So I want to thank you all for making me so welcome here. It's been fun to come up here. And doing this helps me to remember why I keep coming back all these years, because the continued effort that it takes for me to articulate what I have found here helps me to remember it and motivates me to try and practice it, because I find it pretty hard, not impossible, but pretty hard to talk about stuff that I'm not willing to do, it's really good for me, and it really absolutely reinforces my trust in this process. I trust it absolutely. I've come to trust it over the years. So you all know there aren't any professionals here. I'm not a professional. I'm just an alcoholic. If you're new, nothing that I've said during the past 12 weeks is original. None of it. I've gotten every single bit of it from somebody else in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you just may have heard it for the first time, or maybe you've heard it for a lot of times, but it was the first time you ever listened to it. That's the way I was. But everything that I said has been passed on to me. And I pass it on to you, so that if it's useful to you, you can pass it on to somebody else. And that's what we do here. Somebody else is going to be here next week, and they'll have something completely different to say. Their experience will be completely different. So if you haven't heard anything here that you like, come next week and try again. It's the way we do it here. So step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. There are 3 ideas here in this step. It's a very interesting step. There's 3 ideas in it, and they're all related. And, the idea of having a spiritual awakening as the result of applying the steps in our life and carrying the message and practicing principles. And I kind of talk about them in that order. Spiritual awakening is such an interesting thing. That is what we are promised. We're not promised anything else. Better jobs, better looking partners, better sex life, more money, bigger houses, none of that stuff. We're promised a spiritual awakening. Not anything on the outside. A spiritual awakening is something that happens on the inside. Now, I don't know about you, but when I got here, people were talking about spiritual awakenings, and the way I felt about it is, I'm not sure I wanted one. What does that mean anyway? Does that mean I'm going to have to sit around and think about God all day, or never ever have any fun again? Or I was a very accomplished swearer. Would that mean I couldn't do that anymore? Stuff like that. That's what I thought. But it was nothing. What has happened to me is nothing like I imagined. In fact, I didn't have the capacity when I came in here, a drunken woman at 39 years old. I didn't have the capacity to imagine what could have happened to me over the past 30 years. So, what happened to me? I came here. I got very practical suggestions about how to live, how to behave in the world, things that would be good for everyone. Nobody would find fault with these practical suggestions about how to live. I didn't have to think about God at all. And a lot of us worry about that when we come in, because we see that and we think, I'm going to have to do that. I didn't have to think about God at all. What I had to do is learn to think about myself less. That's all I had to do. And I learned how to do this by going through the steps, because the first 9 steps teach us how to get out of ourselves, how to stop being the center of the universe, how to stop being propelled solely by self-centeredness, self-will, and all the words of self. And when I learned to do this a little bit better, my life began to change. It was really funny. People and relationships and opportunities started showing up in my life. Before I'd always sat at home and thought, well, I need this, this, and this. And then I, marched out my front door and set about doing it. And really didn't think about very much how it affected other people or what I was doing or anything else. But once I stopped doing that, once I stopped behaving that way, different kinds of opportunities showed up in my life. And it seemed like without a whole lot of effort on my part, I was not out there trying to make stuff happen. And I found that I wasn't fighting life off. It seems to me, my recollection of what life was like before I got sober, aside from being drunk most of the time, is I was either trying to get something that I absolutely had to have, or fighting off something that was about to happen that I didn't want at any parts of. And there was nothing in between, And so I stopped doing that, and I found that I had ordinary choices in life. Not the ones I expected, they were mostly better. But there were choices about marriage and having a family and participating in a business, choices about life. And eventually I began to make better decisions. And my life seemed to work out better. And I got way better results. I got way better results in my life when I started applying the steps of this program in my life. And eventually, after I began living this way for a while, I found that I had re-engaged in life. When I walked in here, I was not engaged in life at all. I was pretty much in survival mode. I don't think that's unusual. A lot of us are like that. I was fairly traumatized by all the things that I did and places I found myself and dangerous stuff I woke up to. I disengaged from life in order to survive that experience, which is, a lot of us do that. But after coming here and, calming down a little bit, starting to apply these principles, getting better choices, getting better results, I found I had re-engaged in life. I had interests. I never had any interests before I came here other than, finding what I needed for the day to drink. I found that I had more connections with other people, more connections with life. And I got better at it the more I practiced it and tried to share it with others in sponsoring people and in doing the service that I also do, like right here tonight, talking about the steps. And this is the transformation that we're promised by Alcoholics Anonymous, the internal transformation that we're promised. This is a spiritual awakening. That's what a spiritual awakening is, that I can live, that I can re-engage in life. I have absolutely experienced what's promised us in the 12 and 12 with a spiritual awakening. It says that we are able to do, feel, and believe that which we could not do before on my unaided strength and resources alone. And that's absolutely true for me. I can do things I could never do before, talk to people in a way that I never could, with a kind of kindness and with an interest in them. I can treat people I don't like with respect, which I had difficulty doing before I came in here. I feel things. Mostly before I came here, what I felt was angry and sad. And that was it. We had an angry day, a sad day. Sometimes I mixed them up on the same day. When you feel like that all the time, you have to drink, The range of emotions that I experience now is a lot more. And they include joy, peacefulness, serenity, and love. I feel like I have the capacity to love other people, which I didn't much have before I came in here. So I can do, feel, and believe. I believe that there is a power here that keeps me sober. And I've spent 12 weeks trying to describe to you what I think it looks like and how it works in my life. But I absolutely didn't believe any of that before I came in here. So I've gotten the capacity to believe. And not only do I not drink, I don't want to drink, And the thought of having a drink hasn't occurred to me for a very long time. I have become that interesting phrase that they use in the big book, happily and usefully whole. That's the awakening that we're promised here. So, so what does that mean? How am I different? Well, first of all, I'm not a needy person anymore. When I came here, I could never ask for what I could never ask for what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted, and whatever I did ask for, I asked of the wrong people in the wrong way. So I pretty much never got anything that I needed, emotionally or any other way. Today, I don't do those things, and so I do get what I need more often, and I'm not such a needy person. I'm a pretty low maintenance person. And I like that because I don't have to spend a whole lot of time, fixing things and taking care of things and doing all that stuff. I have a lot more space freed up in my head, in my life, in my emotional life to serve other people, to be useful to other people. So, another thing that's different is that when you talk to me, somebody's home. I'm probably listening to you. If you're talking to me today, I'm listening to what you say to the best of my ability. I'm present. I'm trying to be here and understand what it is you're trying to communicate. Today, you can rely on me pretty much. If I say I'm going to do something, I will do it to the best of my ability because I like the way that feels. I like to be that person. I show up and I'm a responsible person. I like that. I can listen and hear. I never listened and heard anything before. And I can pay attention and see. And there's a whole lot going on. And I enjoy that. I didn't have the capacity to do that before. I was always worried about, how I looked, what I was going to say, what I was going to do, and what other people were thinking of me. And so I didn't even notice the whole world going on out there. That's not true of me today. I'm much, much more available to other people, and that feels good too. And it's really interesting. All my relationships are better. Even the bad ones are better, And we all have a few bad ones, They're just, well, for whatever reason, they're never going to be good. But we got to deal with these people. Even my bad relationships are better. I'm not as afraid of living. And as a consequence of that, I have a lot more strength to do things that need to be done. In my family, nobody talks about anything ever. There's always 6 elephants in the room, and nobody ever mentions any of them. And and I'm the one who does it. I said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with my mother? Where are we going to take her? How's she going to live? I'm the one who does that. I have the courage to say and do the hard things in life, and then to follow through and finish it. If I say I'm going to do something about it, I do it. I'm just more able without alcohol, pills, whining, to handle what life presents, and still have room in my heart for gratitude and appreciation of all the good things that I have. I'm not bitter. I've had some really tough things happen to me. I don't feel like a victim because of it. I feel really sad sometimes, but I feel like I've learned an awful lot about life by having gone through a couple of really tough things in my life. And this may be a function of age. I don't know. I'm way older now than when I came in. But I really take a lot of pleasure in small things, in small routines, and little things in my house, and little things that my husband does, things about my family. I just really appreciate them. Before, I didn't have time for any of that. I was always waiting for the next big deal, and that's the way it was. I have a much, much better perspective on life, and I'm not really easily upset or unbalanced. That's a really nice way to live. It's a pleasure to live that way when your hair isn't on fire all the time. And all this stuff is pretty good. It's really a pretty good way to live. But best of all, there's something even better than this. You know, when I'm able to get myself out of the way, I know that some power comes through me that's not me, and allows me to bring something useful to almost all situations that I come to. You know, sometimes it's just sometimes it's an action or a suggestion. Sometimes it's just a different perception. But I always can be a thoughtful, loving presence in the life of the person that I'm with, in the lives of the people around me. This is a very, very powerful program. Anything that can do that is really powerful. And so that's the message that I have. That's the message. Not that the stuff on the outside gets better. It usually does. If you stop drinking, a whole lot of stuff goes away immediately. But that's not what we're promised here. We're promised a spiritual awakening. And that's the power to change my inner life is in this program. That's what we're promised here. So, you know, words are really good, and I've got a lot of words, and I've spent the last 12 weeks talking to you. But the truth is that I'm the message. Not what I say, but what I do. I'm the message to other alcoholics, the power of example. It's how I live my life as a sober woman in Alcoholics Anonymous. That is the example. That's the message, how I live my life, not what I say. I know people, and it wakes me up sometimes because I know people who have a fabulous message, and I know what their lives are like, and I would not want their lives. And that always makes me pause and think about what I'm saying here. Do I do this stuff, or am I just talking about it? So, because I know that the way I live my life is really the message that I have. And the truth is, today, I can't imagine living any other way. I really can't imagine it. So that's a powerful, powerful transformation. The second part of this step says that we try to carry the message. And the operative word here, to me, is try. It doesn't say we carry the message. It says we try and carry the message. It's a little bit like step 2 and step 11. It's the effort we make to do this and not the result that we get that we're after. We're after the effort. The big book is a real textbook on carrying the message, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But it gives us some really important guidelines about carrying the message. And the first one is that anyone can get better, no matter what their circumstances. It tells us that we help the people who want it, not the people who need it. And that's a tough lesson for a lot of us to learn. And how do we know that somebody wants it? We know when they're willing to take suggestions. Simple as that. No matter what they say, if they don't take a suggestion, they don't want it. That's the way I look at it, and it served me well in the many, many years I've been sponsoring people. The big book tells us that we don't enable people by fostering a dependence on us. It's a really tempting trap because people come in here and they're so needy and so dysfunctional and so impaired. It just seems like some of us, you know, it's just obvious how they could be fixed. You know, if you just do this, do this, do this, you know. But that's not what we do here. It's a very tempting trap. What we do here is encourage people to find a power of their own to rely on by demonstrating that we have found one for ourselves. That's what we do here. We don't fix them. The big book says that we're uniquely positioned to talk about the fatalness of alcoholism. And that's absolutely true. Think about it. This is really powerful because all the doctors, the shrinks, the judges, the loved ones, and they're useless because all they can offer are threats. That's all they can offer. If you drink some more, you'll die of alcoholism. If you drink more, I'll throw your ass out of this house. If you drink more, you won't have a job. If you drink more, blah, 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 blah. You'll go to jail, this, that, the other thing. And all they have are consequences. We have a solution. And that's why we have a really, really powerful message. We have a solution here. They don't have any solution. We do. They just have consequences. So it is powerful. So finally, the big book says that if people are willing to believe in a power greater than themselves and live by spiritual principles, anyone can recover. And I have to remember that because there's so many times, especially in the first 10 years of my sobriety, I remember seeing somebody come in the door and saying, never happened. They don't have enough brain cells left. You know, they're too impaired, they're too screwed up, they're too messed up. It'll just never happen. I don't think I'll bother to talk to them. And you know what? We never know. Some of those people have turned out to be my best friends later on. We have to remember this is a program of learned behaviors. We learn to behave better. Anyone can learn to behave better. Anyone can. And we do it through practice. It's a program of learned behaviors through practice. And in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, you're not going to find this in 12 and 12 or the Big Book or any of the literature. The only message that I have about 12-step recovery is for alcoholics. And it's not because other people couldn't benefit from this program. Honest to God, when I think about the spiritual principles, they could be beneficial to anyone. That no harm could ever be done by applying a spiritual principle in your life. But the reason that the 12-step work that we have here, in my opinion, is only for alcoholics, is because it doesn't work unless you believe you have no choice. It's too hard. It's too hard. If you're up against a situation where you're going to choose the way of self or, the hard way, you go the way of self. If you have a choice, I would. You would too. But we know we don't have any choice. We're going to die of alcoholism unless we do that. And that's why this works. My problems can only be solved by spiritual solutions, the solutions that are out of self. And it's too hard unless there isn't any choice. I think I was looking around on the walls here. Most AA rooms have those little slogans like think, think, think. And, I think they ought to change them. I think one ought to say change or die. That's what I think. And the other one I'd like to see, I would really like to see a little slogan that says, we don't care what they did. That would be another personal favorite of mine. But, this is the common denominator among all of us sitting here in this room. They're alcoholics, of otherwise really, really diverse people that come from all different places. It's alcoholism, the threat of death. It is fatal. It kills us, all of us. Other places on this planet may have a message of spiritual growth. I know that there are places that do that, but they never attracted me, and I never felt any power there. So I can't talk about them. But here, I feel the power here. I absolutely do. And I think it's probably good for us to remember every once in a while that there are very few alcoholics today, at least in the United States, I don't know where it is in the rest of the world, that haven't heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. The reality is most people don't stay. Most people don't stay. So if you're sitting here and you've been here for a while, we're very lucky. And if you're sitting here and you haven't been here for very long, just please keep coming back. Most alcoholics don't stay. But almost everybody's heard of it. I mean, everyone sends people to AA because they don't know what else to do with this. Go to AA, get out of my courtroom, Don't go back to my medical office. Stop drinking, So, most don't stay for life. Let me just talk just for a few minutes about 12-step work, which is what all of 12-step meetings are usually about. The Big Book is a fabulous textbook on 12-step work. There are several chapters devoted to it. Read it. And the reason for that is it's the experience of the first 5 years of the first members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's what they struggled to do, is get other alcoholics sober. And they had enormous amount of experience going here, going there, trying this, trying that, talking this way, talking another way. And they summed it all up in a textbook. And it is a great textbook. Anyone and everyone, however, must do some kind of service. That's my belief. It's not all just going out and dragging in alcoholics. In fact, we don't, in this part of the country, in any event, we don't do that much anymore. People get sent to us, they come here. But I think everybody needs to do some service. Why? Because it's a connection to Alcoholics Anonymous. And someday you will be, or like I would be, sitting in my house thinking I'd like to kill myself, or somebody else, doesn't matter which. I'm not drinking. I'd like a drink. But I've got this commitment to go to this stupid meeting in an hour and a half and do something there, like maybe talk or something. Maybe put up the chairs or whatever it is I'm supposed to do, or meet somebody there, or maybe I found the speaker there or whatever, and I'm sitting there thinking the worst and the worst of everything. But I don't want people to think I'm a bad person. So I get myself together and I go to that meeting, I go to that stupid meeting, and I sit there, and lo and behold, I am reminded in some way of what it is we do here and why I can do this one more day. Service does that for me. It's done that for me for years and years and years. I've been doing these step series for 29 years. I haven't always felt like talking, but I always come and show up and have something to say. And whenever I leave, I feel better. It keeps me connected. Service keeps me connected when by myself I could never stay connected to this thing. So if you're not doing some kind of service, reevaluate your program. Talk to your sponsor. Find some connection to the fellowship. Do some kind of service. Do what you're suited for. There are some things that I'm absolutely not suited for, and I don't do them very often. I'm not really good at with brand newcomers. I'm not a handholder. But when people are ready to get sober and do the steps, boy, I'm there for them. But the handholders are really, really important. I had a handholder when I first came in. She listened to all my stuff. She just didn't pay any attention to it. It was the smartest thing anybody could have done, And had she not done that, I don't know what my fate would have been. So we need it all. Whatever you're suited for, do it. But do something. All jobs are important. Doesn't matter what it is, just so we feel a part of it. And I show up when I don't want to go, which is when I need to show up the most. And I just want to mention a word about sponsorship. Sponsorship is one of the great privileges of Alcoholics Anonymous, and its main purpose is to guide the sponsee through the steps, period, so that I can remember what I need to do. I've spent hours and hours talking to other women about the power that they conceive for themselves. And what has that done for them? I don't know, but it certainly has made me have a better understanding of the power that I have experienced in my life. It's made it much, much stronger by trying to articulate it to another person. That's the way it works. And I have absolutely learned more about myself by listening to other people and trying to identify with them than really any four-step that I've done. That's just the way it's been for me. It's easily worth an entire meeting talking about sponsorship. It's really what a privilege. But for all service, no matter what that service is, whether you're a conference delegate or you're just picking up the chairs, the purpose and effect of it is the same. It's so I stay sober. Not so anyone else stays sober, so I stay sober. Like I've said, it keeps us connected when we are unable to on our own, and helps us to remember what we've learned. You know, the self forgets. When I'm sitting there in my own little problem, I've got my own little problem. Now, my mind doesn't want to think about anything but my problem. Now, I've come to a lot of meetings, and I know what the solution is, but I can't recall it. My mind won't let me remember it, you know, because it wants to think about my problem. It wants to be the problem. And so it's not like I hear something new when I come to a meeting. It's just what I hear is that which I cannot recall when I need it the most. And that's what I hear at meetings. The self forgets. So, you know, to keep it, we got to keep coming back and sharing it. So part 3 of this step is practicing principles. And the operative word here is practicing. It doesn't say we master them. It says we practice them. That's all we have to do. We don't even have to get good at it. We just have to practice, practice, practice. You know, in all our affairs. Practice these principles in all our affairs. I just really love the very, very, very understated style of Bill Wilson in saying that. This is not a little program. It's not a little program. It's not a program that we practice by scheduling in AA meetings and talking to other sober people on the telephone. This is a program that I practice in all of my life. It's a way of life. Practicing principles is what it is. It's a way of life. If you don't like the way that sounds, that's all right. Just keep coming back. I understand that. But the truth is that there is no problem, no issue, no defect, no circumstance, no relationship, no fear, no hurt, no resentment that can't be made right by the use of a spiritual principle. That's the truth. And said another way, there is a spiritual solution to every problem I perceive in the world. There may be other solutions, legal solutions, medical solutions, psychological solutions, I don't know, business solutions, but there's always a spiritual solution. And the spiritual solution is what allows me to look at the problem differently, to change my perception of what's going on. Doesn't change the facts, doesn't change what's going on out there, but it allows me to look at it differently. That's what the spiritual solution is. Whenever I look for a spiritual solution, I always experience a change in perception, a perception that is out of self. It has never failed for me. Never, never. It's never failed in all the years I've been doing this. You know, the bad news about all this is that once you're on a spiritual path, it's hard to turn back and remain comfortable. It really is. There aren't any breaks from it. There are no vacations from it. There are no exceptions to it. You know, we are not perfect people, but we don't get to say, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore. I find in life today I'm less able to tolerate dysfunction, my own or yours. You know, I just don't want to be there anymore. So there is no spiritual part of this program. It's all spiritual. And I believe there is no spiritual part of life. It's all spiritual, out of self. But for me, it's the everyday, mundane, day in and day out problems which are the hardest. I really think that the big problems, the really big problems, the tragedies, the really hard things in life, the troops gather around. We're all sort of carried through that. That's the way that mostly happens. But the little problems are tough. Little kindnesses, little paying attention to people, to paying attention to family and friends, giving them little words of support, a little bit of encouragement, a positive outlook and when they're negative about something, acknowledging their hurts, acknowledging their needs, making little gestures of thoughtfulness, efforts of restraint as I move through the day. These, to me, on a daily basis, are much, much harder than the big catastrophes that happen to us from time to time in life. And that's why I need this program. But I have to remember whether the problem is a big problem or whether it's a small problem. The spiritual solution is always the same, never changes. This is what we do. First, I acknowledge that I don't have the answer. Second, I ask for help. Third, I decide to find a spiritual solution. 4th, I look at my part. And 5, I get perspective on it by sharing it with another person. In 6, I do the footwork, the next right thing. And in 7, I give the results to God. I accept the outcome no matter what. And that's it. That's what we do. We do it over and over and over again. The solution never changes. That's the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It could be a family crisis, an illness, an accident, death, disaster, catastrophe, something like that. Or maybe just a little loss, or a failure, or a rejection. Or maybe one of the upsetting problems of the world, war, poverty, disease, government. Those upset a lot of people. Or maybe we just wake up one day and find that our life or our work or our partner is disappointingly dull. The solution's still the same. The solution is still the same. We do the same 7 things over and over. It's kind of interesting. All my life, I've thought about myself really as a failure. I don't need a shrink to explain that to me. But I've always felt like an underachiever, mainly because my expectations were really grandiose. I've felt disappointed from time to time in what I've done in my life. And no matter what achievement I've accomplished here, no matter how much money I made or what relationship I had, my family, my husband, a child, whatever job I had, whatever opportunity or responsibility I had, they all fell short of my expectations. In other words, they fell short of what I thought they would do for me. That's what happened. But this program here is the only thing in my life that I have done well. I haven't done it perfectly, but I've done the best I could do. I've never given up, despite low moments. At first, I had to do it, but now I want to do it. I've always come back. And I realize today, sitting here, that nothing else matters. If I will do this work and not give up and always come back, the rest of my life will fall into place. And so it has. That's the way it's happened for me. I want to finish, like I always do, with the spiritual principle of step 12, which is service. And in its highest form, service means loving others, no matter what. Service means, service starts with learning how to identify with other people, to see how we're all alike, instead of what most of us do when we walk in the door here and figure out how we're all different. Identification is really important. We are all the same in our struggles to be understood. We're all the same in our struggles to be cared for and loved and helped and connected to other people. And service begins with identifying with other people so that eventually we're able to love them. And we all just want to feel loved. There isn't a person here that doesn't want to feel loved. All of us want to experience love. Everybody on the planet wants to experience love somewhere, even terrorists, Everybody wants to experience love. The interesting thing about us is, though, that we think that by rearranging the stuff on the outside, getting the right stuff, getting the right people to do the right thing, getting the right circumstances with the right people doing the right thing, that's how we're going to feel loved. And we are astounded and frustrated that it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and we never feel loved for very long, and we never feel what we expected. But what we learn in this program, how to get out of ourselves, get ourselves out of the way, how to be of service. And whenever I extend love to another person, I always experience it myself. And that is how it works. It took me a long time to learn that lesson. It never fails. And when I feel that love, I don't want to drink. And that's the promise of AA. So before I finish, I'm I don't know, I just like to take a moment and, think about who you were before you came in here. Think about it. And look around, look at the people you know and have known for a couple of years and have learned something about. And remember where you came from, where I came from, where we all came from, what we've endured, what we've walked through. And look at what's happened to us. Look at what's happened to us because of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I love all of you, and thank you for listening to me.